Hello guys, Stag here. So, I wanted to do a video talking about how I prepare a canvas or panel for painting. I get asked a lot what I use to transfer over drawings or sketches, so I figured I would talk a little bit about things that I use and why I do what I do. This will work for both canvas and like wood panels, masonite, whatever you're using. I started with a pre-primed wood panel. Normally when I get my canvases, they come pre-primed, but I have to prime this myself with I use clear gesso. You don't really have to use clear gesso. It's just something that I just ended up using when I got the wood panels, so I just stuck with it because it works. I put a layer on it vertically, and then I put another layer on it horizontally. And for the most part, that seems to do its job, and then I sand it down entirely, careful not to remove too much. I didn't really feel like I needed to add that to the video because everyone kind of has their own little tricks or preferences when it comes to how much gesso to use or whatnot. And I don't have a really great setup for where I sand to really show that, because I use a power sander with really fine grit. So for a painting this size, which is 16 by 20, I have to print out several printouts of my sketch, which is enlarged. The original sketch was about 8 by 10, which I don't get really detailed with my original concept sketches because a lot of details get lost and I don't want to spend that much time on it unless I'm making a finished graphite piece. So I decided to do another Cosmic Witch for this one, and this painting will be called Cosmic Dust. I had to make 6 printouts total for a painting this size, and I used a lot of masking tape. I often cut off whatever overhangs, overlaps underneath, because it just adds to more paper that I have to put pressure to get the drawings and the lines to show up on the wood panel. I strongly suggest not drawing directly on canvas or the wood because you could end up losing your details, or if you screw up you have to start entirely over again. Plus you don't ruin the original sketch. It's more my preference thing because depending on the drawing, like I wouldn't want to ruin the original sketch because I spent so much time on it. And doing the pressure, you are essentially ruining it because you're putting indentations into the paper to try to get the lines to show up on it. It can be a real pain to try to get all these different portions to line up. If you have a light table, that sometimes helps for lining it up more precisely. If I have an area with a lot of small detail, I tend to try to leave that on one page and try not to overlap. Now with the hand, that kind of happened where it overlaps a little bit. Unfortunately, you want lots of tape in any random spot you can put it in if you're doing something big like this, because you don't want those pieces to deviate at all. When you're applying pressure, they can kind of try to wander. I should also try to add, I try not to put any tape where there's going to be a line because it, again, makes it harder to push through. The line might show up on the panel, but it's going to be a lot lighter and a little harder to see. And then what I do is I tape it. I normally tape it on the left and the top. For something big like this, I put a few pieces on it because every now and again the tape might slip and might come off depending on the surface. It might be a little smooth and the tape doesn't adhere that well because it is just masking tape. You don't want the thing to shift at all. You at least need to put tape on 2 sides, because if it shifts at all, then you end up with like this halo line effect on half of it, and you just gotta retrace almost entirely again once it shifts. Now, after I get it taped down, what I use is Sorel transfer paper. It is wax free, so if you're doing it on paper, normally it would erase I tend to keep a few different colors because I used to actually paint on top of the background and like trace the characters on later. So it's really handy having white. And if you're like painting on like a darker color or trying to transfer on a darker color, like even like a dark masonite board, then it's really helpful. Like there's various colors you can get, like blue. I have there's probably red and yellow, but it works really great and it's really bright. My neighbors are freaking dumping all over the place. Sounds like a kid's broke into the apartment next door. But using the graphite colored paper, it works really well on light colors, but if you would use it on something dark, like it is so hard to see and it is almost menacing to try to like tilt every which way to see the slight glare and shine of the graphite on top of your surface to try to line it and figure out where everything was. It is really annoying, so keeping different colors definitely helps. Another thing that's great about this paper is I can reuse that sheet for a very long time. I don't have to get a new sheet. For some reason, like, it's amazing. Like, I still have some of the same rolls that I've had for well over 3 years. For a big painting like this, I normally don't cut like a huge sheet of it. I just cut out a smaller one because then I can reuse it for smaller paintings and it folds back up or rolls back up easily. So I just move it around for the most part because I tend to lift it up anyway to make sure my lines go through. It's always a good idea to make sure your lines are going through because you might have messed up and have the paper the opposite direction and technically you're just making the lines on the back of your paper. If you do not have graphite paper, another good thing to use is just a plain graphite pencil. Like, I wouldn't use a mechanical pencil because you're gonna be coloring the back of the paper forever, but you can take like the broad side of like a pencil and just rub it all over the back. That sounds weird, but the tip, not like just the pencil. You won't be doing anything with just the pencil, but you want to have the tip kind of like on its side, and it'll make it go a lot faster. But I am lazy, so I use graphite paper, and it make a lot less mess that way. Now, on occasion, I do have where I place my hand, it'll be kind of grungy or dirty. Like, that's not really that big of a deal on the underpainting. But if I would use the paper on top of a painting I did, for whatever reason, if I wanted to add an element or I lost part of the sketch or drawings, because I've done that on canvas where I've gone back through and reapplied my lines with a light table underneath the canvas. Yeah, you can't do that on wood panel. So I could line it back up precisely again to where I could see, and then refound my lines and redid it. But you want to make sure the painting is entirely dry before you do that, because the grunge will stick into the paint wherever you put the pressure of your hand, because it's kind of like you would with a pen. Also, I use a pen to do that because you want something harder. Like pencil lead's a little too soft, so a pen makes it easier to get the line definition over. But normally, when going back to what I was talking about, if I do have that rub off on top of the painting, it's not a big deal because I could just take a wet brush over it with some water and it comes right off. If you're using it on paper, it would probably erase. I have never actually tried it on paper. I have no reason to use graphite paper on paper. Because you can just use a light table. You can get them real cheap, and Crayola even makes one pretty cheap. I used to steal my daughter's when I needed one. And now for me, this step is really important. I kind of got behind talking. But I need to define the lines so I can see them better, because it's not real dark. Like, in person, you can see them a lot better than you can over camera. It's a little faint over camera. But I want to define the lines for the underpainting, and I don't want to, I normally do this, like, glaze layer to kind of lock everything in. But I don't want to do that till after, because I might lose the lines with the glaze layer, because it is just graphite and it can easily wash off, wipe off. I normally, both with tracing and with the whole painting, I always work left to right, top to bottom, kind of. Obviously if you're left hand, you'll probably do like the opposite, and you might even want to move your tape if you're taping down your transfer image, whatever you want to transfer over to the other side. I don't know about the preferences that way. When my daughter gets older, I could probably know, because she's a lefty. So, but I strongly suggest redefine your lines. And another thing, when I enlarge sketches, sometimes they are way different than the original sketch, because the lines are so much bolder within there, so there is some deviation even when you're like tracing down the middle of the line. Like, it's, even if it's just this fraction of a tiniest fraction of a millimeter off, like, it's still kind of noticeable. It's not quite the same image. It's just something I've noticed. So you might end up with an even better result or an even worse result, and it's not as detailed. Like, I wouldn't waste time trying to do like all the shading or whatnot from the sketch. It's just, I want the bare necessity of the lines, pretty much. And then I normally go through, after finding my lines and then washing, just some simple shading in. Like, this isn't really the underpainting, this is like the underpainting's underpainting, where I just kind of pre-plot a little bit of a shadow definition, where I'm gonna put it, wherever a light source may be. Even though I didn't really think about a light source, I just slap in shadows. And at this stage, I'm also thinking about how I'm separating the elements. Finding kind of starting base values, where maybe I wanted the silhouette of the pyramid, or the silhouette of the trees. I think I actually started painting this painting. You can watch me paint it live on stream over the next few days. But like, I want to keep that pyramid kind of like a silhouette, but I want it more faded and hazy, so I went a little dark with that. But it was fine, because I was doing like this galaxy scene type dusty, starry mess, and it just would end up painting over the pyramid anyway, so I had to redefine it like 3 or 4 different times throughout the painting, probably. Another element that's going to get lost, that is, she's supposed to have like this space dust coming from her hand going around behind her up to the sky. Like, I kind of really lazily drew the lines, but that's gonna get completely lost in the painting, because I'm gonna paint more of the background, and then it's, so some elements you might lose, but defining some of the shadows now kind of really helps to just break it apart and whatnot. With making like some portions darker already, like the foreground more dark, like it's already kind of added depth to the painting, even though I haven't even, to me, technically started painting it. And you can work this stage however much you want. You can add more shadow, more depth. You can go to a more of an underpainting stage. And the final step for this pre-painting thing I do is I put a glaze over it with airbrush medium, which is really good for thinning out acrylic paint. Now, there's this big old controversy going around that you don't want to mix water with paint. The majority of my career in painting, I have used only water to thin my paints. The problem with that is you have a lot of lift off, and you don't have quite the binding that the paint would have. Now, I can throw the airbrush medium directly to the canvas. You might have seen this in videos where it looks so wrong, where I just like spray it on there real quick and I just kind of smear it around with some random color. But with the airbrush medium, it keeps the paint so it binds better, and I like to do this for an initial locking set that's against the board. Now, I will use water still to thin down my paints for layers, but I do a lot of layers with the airbrush medium as well, because I am kind of worried about it. I will probably do a video on this. It's not that big of a deal because it will kind of affect the longevity of the work when you're using water, but unless you're doing it really terribly, you're not gonna have your painting just fall off the canvas like all these people keep saying. You're more thinking about down the road when you think of like painting restoration and how they're like the medieval paintings, how there's so much effort trying to restore these paintings, keep them like, you're thinking like down the road, like you're gonna have issues where the paint's falling off or whatnot and flaking, but you're probably gonna have that anyway. Granted, we live in a pretty good age where supplies are better and archival and all sorts of things, but thank you guys for watching. Subscribe if you want more, and I will catch you next time. The next video I will probably be posting within the next few days is another time-lapse of probably another Cosmic Witch from this series, or one from my fairy series. And coming soon, in a couple of days, will be another time-lapse video of probably another painting from the series, the Cosmic Witch series, or my fairy series. Let me know what you guys would like to see in videos like this. I can do more. You guys can also watch me finish painting this on Twitch, streaming it live. And you can find me around the social media where I post updates to all the paintings I am currently working on. And I have a website with prints, paintings, my oracle deck, and all sorts of fancy things, coloring books. And you can also find me on Patreon for monthly subscription packs. Thank you guys for watching. I will catch you next time.